Hi. This chapter is unusual. Um, it is a bit philosophical and historical, and also in parts pretty biological. I'm going to deliberately make at least two recordings for this being one of them. And earlier in the class and in this class, earlier in the book and in this chapter, the the textbook is making reference to types of reinforcement. And I teach another course called Learning and Behavior. And we'll be jumping into that book for another element here. Mostly I'm doing this to make sure that this stays awake, because this is in the chapter too. So learning theory is really, really important to understanding many aspects of clinical psychology. Um, Cognitive behavioral therapy, which I like to call the therapy that works, uh, is something we all should know how to do. And its foundations, although the term is cognitive behavioral, learning theory is really at its foundation. You are modifying your thoughts, your cognitions, but you're doing it with learning principles. So this table is important right here. And this chapter uses two references, two of these four cells, and I want you to know all of them. And I'm telling you that there's a good chance I'll include a question on this in the quiz on this chapter. Now, what's not in this table, but I want you to use in your answer, I'm going to ask you to operationally define, that is, define one of those four cells. And the first thing you should say in that answer each time is contingent upon behavior. Now, English is let's do English on this. What's a synonym for contingent? So it's contingent upon behavior. A synonym that is useful is dependent upon behavior. In other words, if the organism doesn't emit, which means do, a particular behavior, none of these four cells count. This is not classical conditioning. This is not Pavlov. This is not where the investigator rings bells regardless of what the animal is doing. In this form of learning, the organism is in charge. And if they decide to take a nap, nothing happens. No bells ring, no meat powder is delivered, nothing happens. Now, the classic place where this learning has occurred in laboratories is in what's come to be called a Skinner box. And there's lots of images. And there's a picture I know and love. I believe it's from Skinner. So there's a rat, a kind of scary one. And you can see in the box, there's a light, there's another light, there's often a speaker, there's a grid floor, and where the animal can be shocked. This is a dispenser, usually for food, but it could be water. Here's B.F. Skinner himself with his giant head. The guy was packing a giant head. And so there's the Skinner box. This round thing here is like when I was a kid, I had a bubblegum machine. And it had round pieces of bubble gum, and in there are little round pieces of not pieces of food pellets, but round food pellets. And if you've ever looked at the bottom of a bubble gum dispenser, there's a disc with holes in it, and the bubble gum goes into the holes. And when you put in your coin and you move the lever, it moves one hole over. And if things go correctly, the bubble gum, a bubble gum cell that's filled with bubble gum, goes over an opening, which is kind of right there, and then rolls down the tube and into your hand or into the food dispenser for the rat. Over on the right is a cumulative recorder. Um, I haven't seen the text use any of that yet, but back in the day, that's how the behavior was recorded visually. And in the back, oh my God, that scares me straight. That's how we used to program things. I'm watching the lunar landing discussions and how primitive computers were 50 years ago. Well, B.F. Skinner was doing this way before 50 years ago, and the logic, and I mentioned AND gates earlier, uh, that's in that wiring. So in the Skinner box, if the rat doesn't hit that lever, there is no behavior and nothing happens. Contingent upon behavior. That sentence should always start your answer. So you should think of your answer in three pieces. Number one, no matter what cell I'm asking you about, contingent upon behavior. Okay. So in where'd it go? Okay. So the stimulus is presented or withdrawn. I'd like to say removed myself, contingent upon behavior. So you say contingent upon behavior, pause. A stimulus is, and there's only two options in this. This is a 2x2 table. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 cells. And this is the table column header. There's two headers. Contingent upon behavior, a stimulus is presented or added. I prefer added, actually. Or contingent upon behavior, a stimulus is removed or withdrawn. And if you've contingent upon behavior added a stimulus, then you're in this column. These are the only two options you have. And if it's been withdrawn or removed, you're in this column. Those are the only two options you have. This is so simple. But when I teach this, there are students who never master it. It's as if they're not able to think about more than one variable at a time. And here you have to think about two. So line 1, contingent upon behavior. Line 2, a stimulus is added to or withdrawn from the environment. And now line 3, and the probability of behavior increases or decreases. That's it. It's a 2x2 table, column headers presented or withdrawn, probability of behavior increases or decreases. If the probability of behavior increases, you're in this row. And if the probability of behavior decreases, you're in this row. Now, the book has talked about, I believe, positive and negative reinforcement. So, but still, let's just go through the table in order. So, contingent upon behavior is stimulus is added to the environment or presented. That means, whoa, dude. That means that you are in the positive column. So now this is capitalism. Contingent upon behavior, a stimulus has been added to the environment, and now the organism gets to make a decision. They can decide to do more of that behavior, and if contingent upon behavior, a stimulus is added to your environment, and the probability of behavior increases, that's positive reinforcement. Don't worry about the things in the parentheses. Positive reinforcement. Now, in America, we almost can't help but associate the term positive with good. Don't. Positive means something was added. That's it. This is like, a circuit diagram. Or no, it's like mathematics. You add something or you remove something. If you add something, it's positive. It's not good. It's positive. Contingent upon behavior, a stimulus was added to the environment. That means you're in the positive column. And then if the animal increases its behavior because of that contingency, contingent upon behavior, stimulus is added, then you have positive reinforcement. Now, I know the book talked about this earlier, and we're talking about reward and addiction in this chapter. So positive reinforcement is very relevant to this chapter. And we're going to stick in this column. If we stay in the positive column, contingent upon behavior or stimulus is added to the environment, but the animal decreases its behavior because of that experience, it's still positive, which probably makes you think positive isn't always good. Now it's positive punishment. So the simple rule here is if the probability behavior increases, it's reinforcement, 2 cells. If the probability behavior decreases, it's punishment, 2 cells. So we've dealt with contingent upon behavior, stimulus is added to the environment, and the probability behavior increases. That's positive reinforcement. And then if I say to operationally define positive punishment, you say, because you always say, contingent upon behavior, and then a stimulus is presented because it's positive, and then it's punishment, so the probability behavior goes down. Positive punishment is something you don't want to say. That's not good punishment. That means it's punishment based on a stimulus being added to the environment, contingent upon behavior. It is not good punishment. It's positive because the stimulus is added. That cell confuses students. And now we're going to go to column 2. And the first cell in column 2 doesn't just confuse students. I've seen biology, criminal justice, and sociology textbooks get this wrong. You should not get this wrong. And I believe this is in this chapter. So let's do the mantra. Contingent upon behavior, a stimulus is removed from the environment. If the probability behavior then increases, that's negative reinforcement. That's not bad reinforcement. It's reinforcement based on a contingency that when you hit the lever in the Skinner box, the stimulus goes away. Negative reinforcement. And in terms of addiction, withdrawal symptoms are not pleasant. And if you take additional drug, contingent upon behavior, and that drug removes your withdrawal symptoms, that's negative reinforcement. So what is negative reinforcement? Contingent upon behavior. A stimulus is removed from the environment, withdrawn, and the probability behavior goes up, increases. Negative reinforcement. I can't tell you how often that is misidentified by professionals with PhDs. They get it wrong. You shouldn't. And the final cell contingent is negative punishment. I say unto you, what is negative punishment? And you say, negative punishment is contingent upon behavior. A stimulus is removed from the environment and the probability behavior decreases. That's negative reinforcement. It's not bad reinforcement. It's reinforcement based on I hit the lever and the stimulus goes away and the probability behavior goes down. Western's criminal justice system is based on that cell. You do something bad and I take away money and that's supposed to decrease the probability of behavior. By the way, when you're answering these, don't say in order to or because we want to. It has to be based not on what you intend, but on what the animal does. So I've just contaminated your brain with Western criminal justice and taking money away in the hopes that you will not speed anymore. If you keep speeding, it's not negative punishment because it's not punishment unless the probability of behavior goes down. This is a bit circular, but parents beat their children thinking they are punishing them. And by the English definition of punishment, that is an acceptable definition, but not in this class for this purpose. If you are screaming at your child and beating your child and the probability of behavior is not going down, that is not punishment. It's abuse, it's punitive, but it's only punishment if the probability of behavior goes down. I'm very big on that. I'm very big on that. The children are being abused regularly by sometimes teachers, sometimes parents who think they are punishing them either by taking things away, but more often by presenting, yelling, or hitting. And boy, if the probability of behavior doesn't go down, in my world, that's not punishment. Stop it. Do something else. If it doesn't work, don't do it. Okay, we're going to pause here for a second while I get ready for the next guy who is cute as a button. Okay, so we are now in another textbook I use from the same company that publishes your textbook. I believe I use 3 of them. I like the company because they're very professional and they try to keep their costs down, which I think is important. And I just love this guy's picture. What a mustache Richard Solomon is packing. So the book refers to this, the opponent process theory, Solomon Corbett, and it says it was a long time ago. Yeah, it was a long time ago. But this came out when I was in grad school, and I was in a grad school that was extremely interested in learning and learning theory. So the opponent process theory has been modified, as the book points out. But let's look at the traditional view of this. So there we go. Standard pattern of affective, motivational, emotion. When an emotional arousing event or stimulus happens, that is, turns on, there is an initial emotional reaction that peaks and then adapts. And then once the stimulus has ended, there is an after reaction that is the opposite in valence to the primary reaction after Solomon and Corbett, 1974. So let's look at this. And there are figures in your textbook that because they're based on this theory, even though it's been adapted. There's a 0 line, your baseline, and this baseline is the way you came into this situation. In this chapter, we're talking about taking drugs. Now, the book will eventually talk about the baseline shifting, which these figures will not. But I'm not disagreeing with the book. I'm just the text is mentioning classic learning theory, very important for addiction. You really can't understand addiction unless you come to grips with learning theory. So here, the blue sections, the stimulus is off. The whatever salmon color is when it's on. There you are, puttering along at baseline, which maybe makes you think about resting potentials. Not a horrible thing to think about, but that's not what we're dealing with here. and then the stimulus is on. And in this case, we're going to, it could be any number of stimuli, but we're in an addiction chapter, so that could be a stimulus that is fun, potentially addicting. You get a very, oh no, I need my voice. You get an initial spike in reaction to it, a real rush to it, and then you calm down a bit, and then you turn the stimulus off, and you sort of get a mirror image, not as big, but you get like a negative reaction after, like not a withdrawal classically, but some people actually would call that a bit like a withdrawal reaction. So there's the first time you're exposed to the drug. Now, this theory assumes that that is, that's what you show the world. That's what you actually, that's what you experience. But what you experience is caused by multiple things going on in your head. I mean, how many things are going on in that brain? Uncountable, billions of neurons. Lots of things are going on. We're in this with this theory. We're simplifying to only two. I don't think there's another figure on this page now. Okay, so stay calm here. So this is Solomon and Corbett again. And when you're answering this in English, because I'm not going to ask you to draw it, you have to talk about A functions and B functions. And what's going on in your head is simple addition and subtraction. And the A function is what the drug or other experience does to you. And the B function is what your body does to counteract the A function. Your body wants to be left alone. Walter Buchanan, Wisdom of the Body, homeostasis. You have systems in the body that if your temperature goes up, they bring it down. If the salinity of your blood goes up, they bring it down. And you just paid good money for this drug, to oversimplify. You paid good money for that A experience. Look at that baby. That's quite a drug experience. But your body wants to be left alone. And even the first time you take the drug, your body at first doesn't notice it or wasn't ready for it. So the drug slams into you. And then the body says, whoa, dude, what are you doing? And it turns on a compensatory, opponent, antagonistic process, which blunts the effect of what you just took, the A effect. And then the A goes away. Drugs don't go away this quickly, but just this is a theory. It goes away, and the body takes a while to trust that it's gone. And so the compensatory reaction stays there for a while, and then your body says, okay, all right, it's over, and it goes back to normal. So look at the bottom here. This is the emotional event. And this was not designed for drug addiction. It's more related to things like fear. But it could also be, physical attraction. But the emotional event turns on crisply and cleanly. So this is a histogram. You go from no event to bam, the event's on, the event's on, the event's on, and then the event's off. Time is the horizontal axis. So we have a discrete event, and we're staying on the left side, first time, first few experiences. So the stimulus comes on, stays on for a while, and turns off. You have two compensatory responses. In your answer, you must mention the A function and the B function. And the A function is caused by the experience directly. It's caused by the drug if you're dealing with addictive drugs. And then the B reaction is the yin and yang. It's the body trying to get you back to normal. Now, the first time you experience the drug, you don't have a very big B response, but you still have some. And we'll get to the right column in a second. So up on top, now that line is A minus B. That line is the combination of the A line and the B line. What color would I have made it? Purple, because it's the red line and the B line combined. And I would have made this down here green. So see how this turns out. So at first, your drug hits you like a ton of bricks, and you have no B function. So you are so happy. Oh my God, this is the best thing ever. But then your body starts compensating, and you're still way above baseline. But your B function kicks in and subtracts from the A function. Notice nothing is changing in the A function. The A function doesn't notice the B function, but you are the summation of A and B, so you notice it, but you're still well above baseline. And then the stimulus goes off. And now you probably do notice this dip because the A turns off quickly, the B function is still turned on, and you get the dip below baseline. So that's first few stimulations. I have a lecture about love that relates to passing a salt shaker. I'm a huge user of salt. And our knuckles brushed, and I was like out of my mind. Oh my God, she touched my knuckle. And it was a peak experience. But after many stimulations, you barely notice it. Oh, sorry, I bumped you. There's barely a blip at the initiation of the stimulus. But look at that baby. So after many stimulations, you have learned how to deal with this. Notice that the drug, the stimulus, is exactly what it was before. A has not changed. In your body, that drug is doing the same thing in this model. This is a theory. Obviously, the body, lots of things do change with repeated administration of a drug. But just go along with the theory. The A stays the same, but look at the size and timing of the B function. The B function is almost as big as the A function, and that's significant. You have learned to compensate for the drug. You've antagonized the drug. You have become tolerant to the drug. And look at the timing. The first time you got the drug, you were caught by surprise. Your body was caught by surprise. Nothing changed for a while, but now you're ready for it. Oh, here comes the drug. I've been here before. Here comes the drug. And the theory allows for a little blip at the outset, but then after a couple seconds, let's say, we don't know what the time base here is, your A minus B function basically takes you down to zero. And you paid good money for that drug, that A drug, and it is doing what it's supposed to do, but your body is compensating, and you are tolerant to the drug. And then you can have what looks like withdrawal symptoms over here. I'm going to pause this one more time, and we may be virtually done with this segment. All right, let me just summarize. So I've dealt with two concepts here: positive and negative, reward and punishment. When you're answering those, always three parts: contingent upon behavior, a stimulus is added or removed, and the probability of behavior goes up and down. Very important. When you're doing this Solomon-Corbett theory, You must talk about A processes uh, and B processes. And the A process is caused, let's say, by the drug, and the B process is caused by you reacting to the drug. And you should be able to tell me about how those things interact the first couple times you take the drug. What's that like? And notice that you are the sum of A and B. And B is subtraction. And if you add a negative number, it goes down. And it moves you from baseline quite a bit and then calms down. And then you have a blip afterwards. And then after many stimulations, you almost don't get a blip at all when you take the drug. But notice that the A function is not smaller. The A function doesn't change, the B function gets bigger. And it antagonizes, it blocks. It's a form of tolerance. And the drug doesn't do that much for you. And then when you are away from the drug, you may have fairly profound withdrawal symptoms. And now, yeah, we're talking about going back to that 2x2 table. If you're living in this world with withdrawal symptoms, if going up means you're happy and going down means you're not, you're in a state that you would like to have go away. So if contingent upon behavior, you take a drug that simply moves you from down here to zero, that's negative reinforcement. You're becoming normal, but normal beats the heck out of withdrawal. So I hope you see the value of those two segments. And now I will stop this segment, and then eventually we will do the other segment.